thought I would share with you a recipe for a cast iron pan peach galette. And this recipe I've been making since about 2009. The recipe was created by Christy Rost, who is a television personality and an author. And I'm basically making the exact same recipe with the exception that I've just reduced the amount of sugar that was originally in the recipe from 3/4 of a cup to 1/2 cup. And I've also just toasted my almonds on a cast iron, or I've toasted my almonds on a frying pan for a minute, as opposed to the original recipe, which has you bake them in the oven for 15 minutes. So it's just faster to do it in the frying pan, and I feel that the reduced sugar makes it sweet enough. It's personal taste, so it's up to you. Now, peaches are nutritious, but there isn't anything outstanding and very significant in terms of the vitamins that have that much of an impact on what you need for daily consumption of specific vitamins. However, a varied diet gives you varied vitamins and minerals, so it's a good fruit to eat, and it's certainly a healthy fruit. Now, the peach has it has under 50 calories for a medium-sized peach, and it's 85% water, so it is a low-calorie fruit if it's something that you're looking at counting calories, and it's certainly delicious. Also, peaches will ripen off the tree. So if you buy your peaches fairly firm, and I did a number of days ago, and all you have to do is pop them in a paper bag and close it for about 24 hours, and it will ripen the peach faster. So it's okay to buy the peaches very firm. Unlike apples, they do not ripen once they're plucked from the tree. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, this fruit, or the peach, originated in China. It was brought to North America in the 1700s. Ontario is the leading producer of peaches for Canada by about 81%, followed by British Columbia, and Nova Scotia also has a small percentage of production. The world largest producer is China, followed by Spain and then Italy. And America, or the United States, is actually the 5th largest producer. And you would think that would be the state of Georgia, being the peach state, but actually 50% of all the production in the US comes out of California. So those are just some fun facts, but today we are going to eat the peach in the galette because it is delicious, and this is fairly easy to make. So we're going to just start with our pastry and then move through the recipe according to the instructions. So the first thing we're going to need, let me just clear this off. So for our recipe, we're going to need 1/2 cup of butter, 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, an egg, 1/3 cup of toasted almonds, some granulated sugar for garnish. We're going to be using 8 to 9 large peaches, 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract, some water, ice water. We're going to use about 3 to 4 tablespoons, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and then we're going to use 1/2 cup plus 1 tablespoon of regular white sugar or sugar alternative, and 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. So let's get started making the galette. So the first thing we're going to do is take our 1/3 cup of the sliced almonds, and we're going to toast them. So watch how it's done. So we've got our pan on medium high, dry, and we've added 1/3 cup of sliced almonds. And this only takes a couple of minutes to toast. You'll smell the almonds as soon as they start toasting, but you don't want to leave this alone. You just want to keep them moving around in the frying pan until you see browning on the sides and you can smell the almonds. So it hasn't even been a minute, and already you can see how they're all toasting. So probably another few seconds. And this is just going to really amplify the flavor of the almonds. And I think that's good enough. I can smell the almonds, but I don't want to burn them, so I'm going to turn them off. Now you could also use slivered almonds, but don't use whole almonds because you're not going to be able to toast enough of the nut to really get that toasted flavor. So the sliced almonds are the best, or the slivered almonds, because you're able to toast all the way around. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to process the almonds into a fine powder. Just about it, just a couple of minutes, and you just want to make it fine because it's going to be part of our crust and we don't want like a really crunchy crust. So that's nicely done. Next, we're going to add our flour. So we're going to be adding 1.5 cups of flour, and this is all-purpose flour. And you want to loosely fill your measuring cups when you're using flour. You don't want to compact it because you're actually getting more flour than you need. And a perfect measurement is really important when it comes to pie crust because it takes very little moisture to actually create the dough. And I believe that by volume for 1 cup of flour, it's going to equal 4 ounces. So we've got our flour in there. Then we want to add a tablespoon of sugar, and that's just white processed sugar. And then we're going to add 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. I'm using sea salt. And then we're going to add, actually, before I do that, let's just give it a little pulse. So we've got our flour or dry ingredients all mixed in there. And next, we're going to have some ice water, and I'll just grab an ice cube. I'm just gonna add a couple of ice cubes to my water. We wanna keep it nice and cold. And we're going to need our butter, which I've got in the fridge. So we're gonna use some cold butter. This is 1/2 cup. And I'm just going to just slice it up in little cubes. Just so that it will mix through the entire food processor easily. Now we're going to toss this in. And we just want to pulse this until we get a coarse consistency. Yeah, so about 10 pulses. And then next we're going to add our water. So you can add, depending on the humidity and the temperature, you want to just start with 1 tablespoon at a time. And what we're looking for is, you don't want to over process this. We just want to process until the dough comes together. So it's just gotten a bit damp, and I'm going to add my 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract at this time. And just kind of distribute it around so that the flavor is all the way through. And then this is my 2nd tablespoon of ice water. And we'll just give it a couple of pulses. We can see that that dough is getting moist. I'm gonna add another tablespoon. is our third tablespoon. It's starting to come together. It is creating a nice dough. Actually, I think it's creating a nice dough. So I think I'm going to stop here. Let's just give it a couple of more pulses. Okay. Yeah, you can see how the dough is starting to come together. This is the time to stop, because once you grab it and roll it, you see how it's forming and sticking together. So this is perfect. We're just going to take some plastic wrap and we're just going to put this together like so, just until it sticks together. Wrap it up. It smells really good. Well, I can't smell it through the plastic, but it did smell really good. And now we're just going to throw it in the fridge for about 30 minutes. So now we have our peaches are nice and washed, and all we're going to do is slice them in half and remove the pits. We're leaving the skin on. And even though you can can peaches, you can use it in jams, jellies, chutneys. You can use it to flavor yogurts, ice creams. You can use it in drinks. Peaches are consumed in a fresh state more so than in any other way. And it's August. The peaches have been fantastic this year. They are super sweet. And I think Georgia is celebrating Peach Festival in August. And that would be fun to visit. And see what their peach festival is all about. Here in Ontario, my peaches are coming from the Niagara region, and it's really pretty out there. And they have their own little festivities and festivals to celebrate peach season, so it's all good. And we're going to slice our peaches in 1/2-inch slices. Oops. So that's working out to be about 4 slices per half of each peach. And you don't want to cut them too much smaller, because when you're cooking it, you don't want the pieces to totally disappear. It's nice to have them a fuller piece of fruit. It will cook better. And I'm using organic white sugar. If you wanted to use a sugar alternative in this recipe, you would use it in equal amounts. However, when you are baking this pie, sugar, white sugar, sugar cane, has a natural tendency to bake and crystallize, whereas our sugar alternatives like the monk fruit sugar, it will add the sweetness, but it will not crystallize when baked like sugar cane. So, and this is a pie so it's very difficult to make it low in sugar, considering the flour that we're using and the sugar that's in the peaches already. So this isn't really a diabetic friendly recipe, but I'm sure there's other ways to use peaches to satisfy everyone's personal taste and dietary needs. But for this recipe, we're just going ahead and using the white sugar cane. Also, the peach is actually comes from I believe the rose family, which includes almonds. So the pit or the stone of the peach tastes very much like almond. So it's no wonder that the almond crust in this particular recipe complements the peaches so well, because that flavor is inherent in the stone. And it is also, I read that they will use the pits or the stones of peaches in order to make a more inexpensive marzipan, so it flavors it with almonds. But I'm going to throw these out. So to our peaches, we're going to add half a cup of our sugar. Like I said, the original recipe calls for 3/4 of the cup. I prefer it with less sugar, but if you'd like to use more, I have a little bit more of a sweet tooth. We're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're going to use 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. That's about 1/2 tablespoon. And then we're just going to toss it. And this isn't too far from the way that you would make perhaps a peach pie, in that you use the sugar, a little bit of cornstarch or flour, and cinnamon. So now we're just going to let this sit until we move on to the next step. So my pie dough has been in the fridge for 30 minutes. I'm going to pull it out, and all I've done is I'm going to roll it out on some wax paper just to keep my counter clean. And our pie dough is nice and firm. And we want a circle of about 16 inches in width. And we're going to roll it out to 16 inches because our cast iron pan that we're going to be cooking our galette in is 10 inches wide. And this is going to be able to overlap, which is what we want, in order to create that beautiful crust. I'm just going to flour my rolling pin. My dough is getting a little bit sticky. I think that's about 16 inches. Yeah, that's good enough. And now I'm going to try and center it. And then just gently allow it to slump right into the cast iron pan, like so. And this is a very rustic pie, so it's all right if it has all of these uneven edges. Now we're going to take our egg we're going to add a tablespoon of water to it. This is our wash. Now we're going to take our peaches from and we're just going to pour it right into the middle of our pie. And I'm going to just add the last bit, because there's cornstarch in there, up our fruit. And then you just want to make sure that your peaches are in there, and it really looks beautiful. And then we're just going to fold over the edges. And you can make this as smooth and even or as rustic as you like. So I think that looks good, like this. And now we've got that coarse sugar. We're going to take our wash and we're just going to brush our pastry. By the way, in the meantime, you want to preheat your oven at 375. And this pie is going to bake, or this galette is going to bake in the top 1/3 of your oven for approximately 40 minutes. And our cast iron pan is ungreased because it is seasoned already, so it will not stick. And then we're just going to take our coarse sugar and we're going to just add it to our pie crust. And this is not only going to give us a nice little crunch on the outside of this pastry dough, but it's also going to add a little bit of sweetness. And that's it. I think that's enough. So now we've got our pie. In our cast iron pan. It looks really beautiful. And we're going to put this in our preheated oven at 375 on the 3rd top shelf. So let me go over and do that. Our oven is at 375. And we're going to take our galette and we're going to put it in the top 1/3 of the oven, and it's just centered. And now I'm going to time it for 35 minutes. We'll check it at 35. It might need a little bit extra, and we'll see if it sets at 40. So it's been 35 minutes. We're gonna check on our pie. It's looking good, but I think it needs another 5 minutes. So it's been another 5 minutes. And it is bubbling and nice and golden brown. So 40 minutes is the time. Now we're going to have to let it cool for 1 hour. The pie is completely cooled. And look at how beautiful it really looks. Very, very nice. Now for the taste test. It's still a bit warm. One more. Test. The peaches are so sweet, but they're still whole and juicy. It's not overdone. And the pastry just breaks off nicely. It's very delicious. It's nice and flaky, but it has that hint of almond that goes so well with the peaches. It's really a delicious summertime dessert, and it's great to have with the little, this is non-alcoholic peach sparkling drink. It's a really delicious recipe that I think anyone will enjoy. But every time I've made it and served it to guests, someone always asks for the recipe. So it's very good. It's great for a lazy summer day. It's very informal. I love the fact that it's so rustic and you can serve it in your cast iron frying pan. This recipe and you enjoy it, I hope you share it. Happy pie making!